Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to check out DemLoc. This is a game coming to Kickstarter, and it's going to be published by Bonfire Games. Now, this is a prototype copy, and what we're going to do in this episode is I'm going to do another video later on that's going to go over the mechanics and basically the overall overview of the game. But for now, because some of the components were damaged in shipping, I just want to go over the really cool theme of the game and show you some of the art and concepts that they're trying to do for the Kickstarter for this game. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to go over the lore of the game, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to give you my thoughts on playing this prototype. So let's go ahead and check that out. DemLoc, or Hole of the Demon, is the name of the city this sad story is about. This name refers to a horrendous hole where all kinds of filthy and terrible beasts come out from, the orifice of the hot and deep hell. Before being called with this creepy name, the small town was simply called Loc, the Hole. By knowing the unusual shape of the land which the village was built, a huge crater cutting off the top of the mountain. In the middle there was a small, narrow, and deep lake, surrounded by luxuriant groves, a common hunting and fishing destination. This clear, small lake was a main source of sustenance for the inhabitants of the town. For decades, life went on quietly. The village became prosperous by fortifying itself, and a majestic tower was erected near the city monastery for astronomy purposes. The population grew along with its trade with the main towns of the empire. The great heresy and war which hit the town shook the peaceful inhabitants of Loc forever. The shadow of obscure and ancient lore even reached the most remote areas of the imperial city. In the months which followed, disappearance of children, tales of demonic rituals, and strange creatures wandering the narrow alleys of the moonless nights spread wildly. Following these and other frightful events, the inhabitants suffered from fear and concerns and entire families were accused of heresy and witchcraft. After short trials and confessions extorted by torture, hundreds of people were burned alive in the city squares. The end of Loc took place on a cold winter's night. The inhabitants heard a deafening roar, followed by a strong earthquake which destroyed the buildings closest to the crater's center. The streets of the town were soon filled with terrified and dazed people. Everyone astonishingly saw a beam of red light coming from the monastery and casting into the sky, accompanied by a dark and evil litany. The air was soon pervaded by the smell of sulfur and rotting meat. Within a few minutes it was all over. After another loud roar, the vault of the chapel was torn apart by a terrible explosion, and a landslide followed. The tallest and most massive tower in the city sank intact in the lake. The following morning, the astonished inhabitants of the city realized the lake was swallowed up in a deep crack in the ground. Right in the center of the crater stood an ancient circular building hidden underwater for a long time, the arena. Following these events, the town was renamed DemLoc and was abandoned. Few of the survivors of the catastrophe lived in the ruins of the village to escape the war tearing the empire apart. For a few years, the great heresy continued, and the heretical forces seemed to corrupt everything. No one has been speaking about the wretched town of DemLoc. When the war ended, the armies were disbanded, and thousands of mercenaries began roaming the towns in search of easy conquest and riches, often creating conflicts and tensions with the inhabitants of the richest and most prosperous regions. After years of war and famines, the populations wanted nothing more than order and peace. To contain the mercenary crisis, an attempt was made to create a free zone for the mercenaries so they could give free rein to their violence without involving the citizens of the empire. Due to the isolation and location and its obscure fame, DemLoc seemed the most suitable place to house the mercenaries and reprehensible honor it had to bear. Mercenaries chose the arena, the ancient building that emerged from the dried-up lake of DemLoc. Within those filthy walls, the most famous combatants could fight and clash and solve issues of honor or old disagreements. Thanks to a growing fame and mysterious buildings, many mercenaries, murderers, and butcherers rushed to fight with each other, waiting for the beginning of a new war. In the city, trade flourished again, mostly illegal, and scholars moved to town, the holy cult defined them as heretics due to the archaic and demonic things they worshipped. Over time, the empire became more secure. DemLoc did not. In the town, several organized groups of mercenaries joined together in the guilds. They soon began fighting to take control of the city, above all, to seize the huge amounts of gold and precious artifacts passing through the streets of the town every day. The huge arena was soon considered a symbol to attract adventurers and desperate people ready to do everything to earn a few coins and a bit of fame. I still remember when I crossed the huge and dark rampart of the city for the first time. I saw burnt and decomposing bodies hanging to the armored doors that blocked the access to unwelcome visitors and prevented inhabitants from leaving. For me, as for all my companions in this misfortune, the city was built inside a dormant volcano in the middle of the most inhospitable mountain I have ever visited. It was simply called DemLoc. And there I was forged by thousands of battles, and there I faced unspeakable pains, and my body will lie bloodless within the walls of the dark arena. DemLoc is a competitive game played by 2 to 4 players set in an imaginary city of DemLoc. In DemLoc, players are guild masters, sinister and powerful masters of the guilds of each city, who have to fight each other to increase their guild fame and riches. Each game will influence the history of each guild, and the progression will be on the guild itself and not each character. The game develops in different missions where the players will use their characters trying to reach their objectives and thus winning the game. The duration of each mission or game will be based on the number of missions played. The main characteristic of DemLoc is to switch between skirmish game missions against other players and individual game sessions, planning and improving players' own guild. The app makes the game more dynamic, lets the players keep track of their progress, helping them during missions in the damn city of DemLoc. The ultimate goal of the game is to make your guild the most powerful and influential in the city of DemLoc. To do it, players have to enlist the best mercenaries around, equip them, and exploit their abilities in various missions proposed during the game sessions. The goal is not always to kill your opposing characters. At the end of each mission, each participant will be assigned fame points and gold coins called feuds. Players who manage to increase the fame of their guild will be able to expand it by enlisting even stronger mercenaries. If their riches will increase thanks to the amount of feuds gained, they will be able to grow it and acquire property, dormitory, armor, etc., increasingly powerful weapons, and arcane codes for their mercenaries. So I really enjoyed playing DemLoc. It was a lot of fun. This game, I think, is really enhanced by the app. I really like how they offloaded the guild, which is a big portion of the game, onto the app, because it's a big portion of the game that isn't part of the game when you're playing it. So what that means is the app itself is where you're going to upgrade your guild, where you're going to set up your mercenaries, we're going to equip your mercenaries, we're going to customize your mercenaries, we're going to customize your guild. You're going to do all this stuff through the app in between games. So you're going to level up your guild so you can get better mercenaries. You're going to get your followers and line them up, and all sorts of really cool things in the app itself. When you're ready to play the game, the app will help you start your game. It'll generate the dungeon for you. You're going to put out those tiles, you're going to put out the stuff it says, and you're going to count. During the gameplay of the game, you actually don't have to use the app very much at all, which I really like, because I don't like to have the game bogged down by having to work with a fiddly app, and this app is not fiddly. Well, the only real times you're really going to have to use the app during the game is when you're going to summon your demon, because it's going to be a random demon that comes out, because that's how it is. When you summon it, you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to get the general faction of that demon or whatever is going to come out, but you don't know which one. So you're going to use it for that. You're also going to use it if one of your mercenaries dies, just to mark down that the mercenary died. And you'll also use it at the end of the game to show your results. Now, the game itself can end multiple different ways. Each mission will have different goals, which isn't always completely defeat your opponent. They can have different sort of areas that you have to control, things you have to get, whatnot. Either way, complete the goal, you end the game. Eliminate your opponent, you end the game. Or the opponent could forfeit, where they don't, they're like, well, enough of my people have died. I don't want any more to die. I'm good. So any of those could end the game. I think that this game is full of tons and tons of potential. The demo, which is going to be one mission that we played, was amazing. But this, with the app there, it's limitless. You can have tons of different missions you can have in there. You can have tons of interactions with other players' guilds. You can have tons of different things that can happen. You can have the app could maybe even take care of, like, if someone has a high level guild versus a low level guild, and sort of make it more difficult for the high level guild. Either way, I like all the potential that this game has to offer. I like the art and I like the direction of the game. I'm really, really excited to see the Kickstarter. And like I said, later on we're going to do a video on the mechanics and basic gameplay of it. I just wanted to show you some of the really cool things of this game. Basically, its lore and its art. And I'm super excited about this Kickstarter. I really think it's worth checking out. I think this system is one that can be very innovative and really have a highly immersive gameplay, which is something I always really looking for. I'm really like to have a game where I can be immersed in it. And again, like I said, it does use an app, but I think it uses the app in all the right ways. So that's my thoughts on the prototype for DemLoc coming to Kickstarter. Thank you for watching.